So this piece here is your heatsink. I would kind of show it, but you can see there's a little blue sticker on it. Oh, all right.
Because we're setting up the whole thing.
So you can see it's right here. You just peel off the sticker. I will show it when we actually do pull out the Raspberry Pi, which we'll do next. And this kind of keeps your Raspberry Pi from overheating. And this is your actual Raspberry Pi, 0 specifically. This is kind of what it should look like. Here's the back. And so to show it off, I'm going to then peel this off just like a regular sticker. And you want to apply it right here to this black square. Try to level it a little bit. So there you go, it should look like that. This should help it run a bit easier as you use it. And this here is your HDMI converter, because Raspberry Pis use a special sort of, well, they use two different inputs, but the main input we'll be using is probably the HDMI one, which looks like this. If you have any spare HDMI cords at your household, it just plugs right into this slot right here. There you go. And then you just plug your HDMI cabling into there, and then you plug the other end to your TV, your computer, your spare monitors, anything you have on hand. This part here is your USB converter, so kind of like the HDMI converter where it converts to a special display cable. This instead converts to your typical USB cable. If I can't open it. So if you can see right here, here's the cable. Right here, if it'll focus a little bit. And you just plug it into specifically this one on the left. It's very important you do the one on the left because that one's for your USB cabling, while the one on the right is for your power switch, which is right here. Put it into the right one. And then what's cool about these is since the Raspberry Pi doesn't have a battery, it doesn't really have a power switch built into it like your phone. So instead, that's what this little thing's here for. It's your on and off switch. The little one that has a bump is the on, so you push that down. And this isn't plugged in, but if it was and plugged into a monitor or something, it would display things on the screen. This here is your case that has been given to you for it. Oh, well, I guess we'll rip it. There are multiple covers that come with this case. These two, they are both used for different types of parts for your Raspberry Pi, though you probably won't need them. But if you do plan to use, like one of them's used for holding a camera, and the other one's for access to your GPIO, which is like the little pin slots you see right here. Now if we open the case, you see it looks like this. It's a little bit hard to open. Once you do get it, it's fairly simple and straightforward. These pieces you'll want to attach to the bottom here. I'll do one to show you. They just peel off just like this. And then you put it right within that little circle. And this just is more of a, not really practical, just more like for aesthetic, so that it's a little bit harder to move, and when you do move it, you don't scratch up your case. So now if you look in here, there are holes and different designs on it. You want to match your Raspberry Pi to those. So if you look here, there are slots that we have other stuff that I showed you that we plug into, and you want to fit those together. Try to make sure they level up as closely as you can. Yeah, it snaps right in. And see, it could still fit in all of your other various parts. That means you did it right. And this part you can put in, but it's not required. It's attaching your electricity pins. So if you are using it for various engineering projects, you put these in, and typically they stick in, at least in normal Raspberry Pis, but these ones seem to be interchangeable. This little piece you fell out is called your ribbon cable. If we ever use it, it's used for sticking a display onto your Raspberry Pi without using an HDMI. So kind of like those builds you see of the little tiny computers people make that the whole thing's just attached to it. That's what this ribbon cable's for. And then we'll just put the case right on top. And there you go, here's a standard Raspberry Pi Zero. And then this is your pins chart. So those pins that I mentioned earlier right here, if we open up the case again, if it'll open up. Case gets a little bit stuck every now and then. There we go. These little pins that go in here, if it will go in. Come on. No, you want to, oh yeah, I might as well mention that. You want to have the shorter pins facing downward. So you have your longer pins going upward.
Does it affect anything if you have the pins on?
It's for, I was going to explain that. So this sheet is all of your different connections. So when you see those builds of people making little model cars or whatever, they have all the little wires sticking out of it. That's what these pins are for. That's what you attach them to. And this kind of is a sheet that goes into all of the specifics of what each pin produces and accepts.
So does it matter having the pins on and not using it?
If you're not using the pins, you might as well just take them off, as long as you don't lose them. So maybe if you
But I mean, can they have them on and not use them?
Yeah, it's not required at all. If you're not using them, then they just kind of sit there. They are a bit loose though, so I don't know if I'd 100% say it's safe for your Raspberry Pi to just leave it in there, especially if you're not using it. But when you're using it, yeah, okay. Definitely I'd recommend it.
Okay. So, probably don't need the pins out. So the extra part, so let's put the lid, put the case on, and then we'll put the extra parts.
Oh, these parts are actually replacements for the lid. So this one is for access to your pins. So, you know, you'd have your pins showing off and sticking out of there, and then you just place your connectors in. At least that's what it's specifically for. This one is for access of a special type of camera they make for Raspberry Pi Zeros, where you have the cabling just kind of go through this hole here and it mounts on top of this fancy looking stand.
So basically, these things here are extras, and these things here are the things that you would need and use.
Correct.
Okay, and this is just for funsies.
Yeah, you can stick it on a backpack or something, I don't know.
Okay. Sounds good. And this, so they probably just want to keep all these together.
Yeah.
If they,
I'd typically maybe keep something like one of these.
What's that red thing over there?
It's just
a card?
Card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do they need to keep the pins or anything in this bag?
If you plan to do more things with your Raspberry Pi after SUU prep, then yes.
Okay.
It will probably be a good idea to keep these in a safe spot.
What did this do again?
So you attached it to the inside. I'll show you specifically where. This will open. So if you look right here, there's this little line here. And you may notice it also feeds out on the bottom here. You put cabling, this ribbon cable is what it's called. You attach it inward, and there are smaller screens you could buy, like this big, teeny tiny ones, and you just feed this cabling into it and into your Raspberry Pi. So that instead of having to use the HDMI cable and steal your parents' TV for a couple hours, you could just instead have a tiny little screen built into your Raspberry Pi.
Cool. Okay.